Hi, my name is John Noble. I am a project architect at SHP and a design leader focusing mostly on early childhood spaces.
So you recently attended South by Southwest EDU and viewed a screening of the film Bulletproof. Can you tell me a little bit about the film and how it affected you?
One of the perks was you get to watch these movies, and they showed this documentary. I think it was produced by PBS called Bulletproof. And it was one of those PBS documentaries where there's no narrator, there's nobody to set a context or decide sort of what the point of it is. It was a series of vignettes where they followed different groups and different places as they tried to figure out how to deal with school shooters and try to figure out what the right way of addressing it was. For me, the thing that was amazing about it was how impactful the lack of a kind of a specific editorial stance was, because what I wound up getting was this kind of insight into the motivations behind a variety of different reactions and approaches to school safety. I think that what was compelling was that there was this acknowledgement on the part of the people who created the movie that it's just not an easy answer, and that it's really important to remember before you start judging all the people who are talking that the whole reason that everybody is there is to keep those kids safe. Some of the stuff that we saw in the movie was stuff that we're doing. This idea of compartmentalization is obviously a powerful one. I think the final big takeaway is that given the fact that we cannot, no matter how hard we try, stop these things from happening, we need to find as many ways as we can to slow them down, to give the security services an opportunity to respond and minimize the havoc, before they get there. And that's what our designs primarily are focused on, because we understand what the realities are. I had this insight that school shootings are an awful lot like COVID. And the reason that I say that is the huge, enormous, overwhelming majority of people who get COVID are fine. The vast majority of people are fine. And yet it's undeniable that an enormous number of people are not fine. They either are desperately sick, they hopefully recover. Some people haven't recovered after having it for a year, and many people have died from it. So it's not nothing. It's a thing. It's just that it's such a random thing. And school shootings are the same. The vast majority of schools will never see a school shooter. And yet, every now and then, in very, very pronounced and visible ways, because of the ubiquity of social media and all media, these horrible things do happen. And so it really winds up being this kind of a very similar sort of threat analysis and threat strategy. How do we address something that is most likely not going to happen, but if it does happen, it's devastating? And I think that, like with COVID, there are basic things that we can do in schools, the compartmentalization, some cameras. We can put ballistic film on windows to slow the access of an intruder. We can make secure vestibules so that we can screen people. We can have all of the kind of identity recording equipment that tracks who comes in and who goes out. And we can make sure that doors are monitored and closed during school hours and all of those things. Much the same as we wear masks and we wash our hands, and if we're sick, we stay away. And then in the end, we need to rely on the highly trained, highly knowledgeable emergency services people to be able to do their job, and we need to give them time to do their job. And so that's my big takeaway.
One of the things you mentioned in your cover note was empathy, kind of having more empathy for the side of the argument that maybe you don't stand on and being able to see multiple points of view. I thought that was really interesting. And obviously this COVID observation is really interesting. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about how the film might impact your design in the future.
There's kind of two parts, right? There's what's the physical result of the design process and what's the interactive, conversational, information gathering part of the design process. I think for me, maybe the movie has more of an impact on the latter than on the former. I could imagine that it will impact the process of design and how I think about and interact with the various different folks for whom we're working. taking a moment to empathize with the sense of responsibility and the sense of duty and obligation on the part of all of the participants, regardless of what their preferred strategy for dealing with it is, if nothing else, can help make a more productive conversation.